Hi again, listeners. It's great to have a chat again, and I think this time I'm going to talk to you about woodpeckers. I think it's a good time to bring it about because woodpeckers, they're actually amazing birds in a lot of different ways. There's one of the most amazing facts about these woodpeckers is that they're actually found everywhere on Earth except Australia, New Zealand, Madagascar, and extreme polar regions. So you can imagine how many different species there are in the world. We have 7 here in southern Africa. They're so remarkable. They hammer into wood for food, for making nesting holes, and even to communicate. And that's what I'll discuss just now. They have these beautiful bills with a very large base, which actually works as a shock absorber. You can imagine them knocking away or hammering at wood all the time. It can be quite sore. So the other way they can actually cushion their blow is the fact that they have very small brains. And these brains are actually cushioned within the skull with a sort of pillow of bone. So it's radical. It's incredible how these birds are actually designed. They've got a special little hinge between the nasal and the frontal bones of the scalp that actually dissipates the shock. And these delicate brains are cushioned. Can you imagine this, eh? Wow. And the other thing is they also protect the eyes. Can you imagine, with all the hammering away at the wood and all the bits of wood chips that are flying around, they have a very thin film of a sort of a skin membrane that crosses the eyes just before impact. And, impact, that's a new word for me, impact. So you can imagine just the design of these birds. It's just incredible. I'm also going to mention their feeding techniques. They have these most incredibly long tongues that start above and behind the eyeballs. So you can imagine the head where the eyeballs are. So it comes around the back of the head, right at the top of their skull. So it comes behind the eyeballs, stretches along that skull, around the back, and then into their mouths. I just hope you can picture this. It's like, if you put your eyes up facing your head, it's like from the top of your head, going around the back of your head, down through into your mouth, and then out the front. They're incredible because they actually use these long tongues to find insect trails under the barks of trees. So they hammer around till they see these little trails, and they flick their tongues down there, and they snake out of their mouths. And some of them got little barbs, but they've got a very gluey kind of spittle on these tongues, which actually helps them catch termites and or insects most of the time. The other unique adaptations to woodpeckers is they've got these special feet. They've got 4 toes, but they've got 2 toes pointing forward and 2 facing backwards, so it's easy for them to grip on the side of the trees. But what makes them unique is if you look at your toes, you've got 4 toes, right? The first and the 4th toe point backwards, and the 2nd and 3rd toe actually face forward. So you can imagine this really helps them grip on the side of the bark of the trees as they move around all the time. And they also have these like reinforced tail feathers, almost like stiffened tails, which actually helps them to stay propped vertically on the side of the trees. Oh man, I tell you what, these are absolutely amazing birds, and for the purpose they have in life, you can imagine the way they adapted. It's just brilliant. Yeah, woodpeckers are actually one of the few species that actually make holes in dry trees, actually for sort of nesting purposes. And they normally make these holes, big enough to get one bird at a time, for more protection. And the strange thing is, they'll only use these nests for a year. They'll move to another tree for the next year. And once they move, these holes get inhabited by other species of birds. But it's just crazy. You think about it. They make all that work, make a hole in the side of the tree, and then they sort of move on the next year to go make another hole in the tree. But most of the trees they use are all dead, dry trees. And with all this working that they do, you can imagine all this hacking away at the bush and all that. They must be. They need a lot of energy, and to save energy, they have a unique way of flying, They kind of like have a bounding type flight whereby they flap their wings and get a bit of height and then basically freewheel fly, if you know what I mean. For away, come down and zoop, and then flap their wings again, go up again, and then it just sort of glide again with their closed wings. And the other thing is each woodpecker species has its own unique call. And they also have a unique way of passing along messages. And this is something that a lot of people don't know. And they drum on trees. Sometimes you see them knocking away at a dry, the old dry tree, but they're actually not looking for food. But it's a way of communicating. And each one of the different species of woodpecker has its own bass or the own sound. Either quiet or louder or whatever the case may be, but they'll all be the same. And this is what they do sometimes. And it's just incredible, these birds. I really love them. But you can always know them. If you walk around the forest, you can hear them tapping away at the forest before you even see them. And then you can have a look at them a little closely. As I said before, there's 7 different species of woodpecker in southern Africa. And I'm going to split this into a chat between 2 parts. One part, now I'm talking about, them as a whole, and I'm going to actually talk about one of them, which is the only woodpecker basically in South Africa that basically doesn't hang around in trees. And but next week I'll speak about the other 6 types of woodpecker that we do have here. But basically I'm going to start with the ground woodpecker that we have here in Southern Africa. Well, as I've sort of said earlier, it's the only woodpecker that's actually not associated with trees. It actually hangs out in rocky hills, and grasslands. You'll see them in these hills of beautiful grasslands and these rocks that stick out and jut out. They love to sit on the edge of the rocks. They basically got like a greyish olive underparts, very pale eyes, and they've got like a pink washed breast. You'll see them, they tend to dig around ant holes, darting their long tongues down these holes, grabbing for pupae or ants. Most of the time, they kind of like make their nests in the side of a bank, on the side that sort of normally goes downwards. But they normally come out of their nests quite early. They find a rock where they'll, not really stand on it, but rather squat for a long time, and they'll just absorb the sun, angling their bills, upwards, with their bellies on the rock, getting a bit of warmth there. But that's how you'll find them most of the time if you look around. Well, you'll always hear them because they've got a fantastic call. But most of the time, one will stand guard while the others feed. These nests, as I said, they can dig them down to about 1 meter deeper, and they're normally down at an angle. The fun thing about these woodpeckers, the males, if you ever see the males going for a partner, they tend to make short, like jinking flights. Then they call this like, it's like a peow type call, and it lands in front of the female and starts spreading its wings in short bursts. They're really, really beautiful birds to hear and see. I see them a lot when every year I go to the Golden Gate area and do bird counts. I think I have mentioned that before, and I go there quite often. I think we go in January for a long weekend and do a bird count there. They tend to lay eggs from around about July to December, but they normally peak in July and August. And both adults will brood and feed the young ones. And they have a very loud call. But you know what? Let me see if I can play it for you rather than try and imitate it. Right, I did say I'm going to try and get the sound of that ground woodpecker for you, but here it goes. You should be hearing it anytime soon. It's really a beautiful loud call that they make. Yeah, there you go. That's the call, but it's a lot louder than that. Trust me. When you're in the open, it's like this. Yeah. Anyway, that's all I'm going to be actually talking about now, about these beautiful woodpeckers, And I think what I'll do is next time I have a chat in 2 weeks' time, we'll talk about the other 7. I'll give you a quick synopsis on each one, what they look like and their kind of calls, and where you might be able to find them. So, okay, guys, and folks out there who are listening to me, thank you for listening to me. Again, I say thanks. I will stop now and then I'll say cheers. I'm actually going to the Kruger now for 3 weeks. Can you believe it? I'm looking forward to it in about 2 days' time. I'll bring you some at some stage. I'll let you know what type of birds we found, something new maybe that I saw, something interesting. So there we go. Until next time, from Big Al, cheers and happy birding.